Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Hear 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite. Voices like the park, fans dripped in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP and Rob here on the pregame show. Usually Rob's doing the intros to the pregame here, so I'm kind of trying to figure out what to say, but the New York Mets have game 2 versus the A's. I almost said Oakland A's again, but it's game 2 of this series. Thank you all for joining us for the very late post-game stream yesterday, or I should say today, in the early goings of the morning around 1 a.m. all the way up until 2:15 a.m. The Mets look to win a series here after a pretty thrilling victory in game 1 by a score of 7-6. We'll talk about the lineup, the pitching matchup today, and everything else that you need to know about this matchup between the Mets, our Mets, and the A's. Before we get into that, Rob, how you doing today?
Well, we pulled out that victory, even though it was nice and calm throughout the game, and then Mr. Edwin Diaz made it very interesting. I was listening to it at work, and then I obviously listened to the post game today at work. So it was interesting for sure. But hey, we pulled out the win. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. But hey, our first place New York Mets gets to have a chance to win another series again today.
Absolutely. The Mets are going for the series win, which would be back-to-back series wins if they're able to pull it off. And as we all know, a season that is 162 games is essentially all you need to do is just keep stacking series wins. And that's what the Mets are aiming to do today. It was very interesting, and it got interesting in the later stages of the ball game. Again, Edwin Diaz did not look his best, but he does get the save. I believe that is his 3rd save of the season. And the offense was a pleasant, not surprise, because as we mentioned in the pregame yesterday, we knew that the ball was going to be jumping in that ballpark, and Brandon Nimmo got things going with that home run to lead things off for the New York Mets. And the rest was history as the Mets score a total of 7 runs, but they did make it interesting. So give me some of your thoughts. I know that you weren't a part of the post game. I had my guy, Zach, Sunny Days Zach, in your shoes talking about last night's game. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on it just through and through, because we'll talk about it. I'm sure that's what a lot of Mets fans want to talk about right now in terms of the actual lineup and seeing Brett Beatty's name in there instead of the guy that just had a multi-hit game with Luis Angel Acuna. What did you think of yesterday's game in its totality, the offense, etc.? I know that you were kind of at work for most of it probably, but, in watching some of the replays, maybe you caught some of it. Like, what did you think?
Well, I was very happy to see Acuna put good wood to the ball. Nice contact. I like to see that again when nobody was really taking advantage of that open position, basically at second base, and then he's not playing today. So that's just the platoon in a nutshell. Why we don't like the platoon, but overall, Pete Alonso. I mean, once again, the guy has been amazing from day one, and he clearly basically won this game for us. Starlin Marte, once again, when he gets the start, and he's getting the start again today, he hits. That's the one guy that can't come off the bench and get a hit. He just can't do it. He's a starter. I know we can't play him every day, and Wicker's just sitting there, collecting dust at this point, but Marte's hot, and when he starts, he's good. Overall, it was a good game, obviously until almost the end. It should have been a whole home victory, but again, that the ball jumps out of that ballpark. We were seeing that yesterday, but it, and we talked about Mendoza going through this test of having a lot of no days off over a 2 week span. He tested Griffin Cannon a little bit, and I'm not going to say he failed because that's not fair to him. He did get through the fifth. He did get through the fifth inning, try to get a few more outs in the sixth. Didn't do it. Again, this is the thing, right? Mendoza trusted the pitcher probably the first time this year, other than Peterson. And I'm not going to say he failed, but he made it more interesting than he needed to be. And we ended up still using how many guys? 5, right? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 guys yesterday. So this thing, if he would have got through that sixth inning, that would have been one less pitcher we could have used. But overall, I think Griffin Cannon had a good outing.
Solid.
Yeah, it was definitely solid. I like that Mendoza tried to push him a little bit, but again, what is Griffin Cannon? And that's the thing, right? He has a 4.2 ERA right now over 3 starts. So it's not great. It's not bad. It's somewhere in between. And that's what you expect, right? Griffin Cannon shouldn't be, the second or third starter in this rotation. He should be the 5th or 6th. But because of our injuries, they got all pushed up. But overall, I think it was a solid win, right? You still find a way to win. And even though they made it close at the end, they found a way to win, and they still continue to do it over the first 13 games of the year. And look, I'm not mad. It was exciting. I like to see the offense put up runs, give the pitcher a break, so nobody can say, we know who we're talking about in the comments, saying that, they don't get no run support. That's why, they have to pitch under stress. Well, he wasn't pitching under stress after like the 3rd inning. Like it should have been an easygoing game. But overall, I'm happy with most of the offense. Again, Soto, he got a hit. He looked okay, but still not great. I do like the fact that he was speeding around those bases, so that $765 million wasn't holding him down around the bases. He seemed like he was going full speed when he had to go around those bases, which is a good sign. Brandon Nimmo started it out early with the home run. Like to see that. Vientos, I don't know what we're gonna do with him right now. I'm hoping he gets going. Yesterday was bad at bats. They weren't very good at bats in my opinion. But overall, we got the victory. It wasn't pretty, but this team can be a little bit. I was gonna say Oakland. Goddamn, the Athletics are a pesky team. You could see, right? They swing at everything. Like how Griffin Cannon didn't have like 15 strikeouts in his 5 1/3 is amazing because they swing at everything. So that is something that David Peterson has to pick up on today overall. But yesterday, nice win. We salvaged it for the most part. Chris, are you concerned about Diaz?
Yeah, honestly, I kind of am concerned about Edwin Diaz with what we've seen. I know that's very early, and I'm not like, again, I'll say it again. I said it on the off day stream that I did with Zach. I'm not overly concerned, and I'm not going to press the dire panic button
Yeah.
just yet. But there are signs that we're starting to see with Edwin Diaz now consistently that we can say that it is turning into a little bit of a pattern. And it all starts with his slider. It really does just start with his slider. Doesn't really have great command of it and has to overly rely on the fastball. And honestly, yesterday, the fastball, he also didn't have good command of either. So, with him, it's about the free bases, um, hit by pitches, walks, I'm not gonna make it a huge deal. I don't think that we should make it a huge deal, but it's something to definitely keep an eye out on as he tries to make adjustments and trying to figure out what works. And, clearly he's not gonna go back to the 2022 version of himself.
Yeah.
That's a little bit unrealistic. We've said that countless of times. I think last year was when you take a look at the season in its entirety, last season out of Edwin Diaz in 2024 was a pretty decent season given the full season coming back from that injury, right? Um, but I really expect a step forward from 2024 into kind of that middle ground, that median point between the 2024 output versus the 2022 output. So somewhere in the middle would be awesome. He's not there yet. Hopefully he gets there. But yeah, I do think that he just has a lot of stuff to work on, and hopefully that, he's trying to get the slider figured out because as I mentioned, that's his bread and butter. When he's on, he's getting swing and miss with sliders out of the zone, and we just haven't seen that. And we've actually seen a lot of hanging sliders out of him, and the opposing team is naturally going to do damage against that. So we'll see what happens there. But I agree with you. The A's lineup is very aggressive. They're very aggressive, which could be a blessing and a curse. And we saw how that was a blessing for Griffin Canning in the first 5 innings because they were a very efficient 5 innings, and there should have been no trouble for him to get through that sixth. But he did get into some trouble. And Reed Garrett had to come in and relieve him after the game was 6-4 at that point. And that's just is what it is. I think that he had a pretty solid start. He pitched to a lot of contact. They did make a lot of solid contact off of
He
Griffin.
did.
They did smoke a couple of baseballs that were just right into the outfielder's gloves, and the Mets did get lucky in that facet. So that ballpark plays a certain way. I think that both lineups know this. Both teams at this point know this. Vientos hit a ball that was, down the line, and I'm not sure how that ball stayed in because even Gary was making it seem on the broadcast like it was going to travel into the stands, but it actually hung up long enough and in play for Lawrence the right fielder Lawrence Butler to actually go ahead and track that ball down. So, yeah, I don't really know exactly how the Mets can continue to adjust to the ballpark elements because they're only there for the 3 games, finishing up the series tomorrow. The A's are going to have a lot better of a feel in terms of outfield adjustments and the outfield
Yeah.
positioning, right? But I think that Jose Siri did a fine job, especially making a catch up against the wall. That was, I forgot who actually hit that baseball. It might have been their first baseman who's been on a tear so far this season. But yeah, I think that David Peterson, the game plan should be very simple. You can get them to swing and miss if you bite around the corners. But when it's time to go after them, especially if these guys are giving up free passes, because that seems to be the common theme here and how guys are getting in trouble with the walks. I mean, Tyler McGill got himself into trouble with some walks. Griffin Canning had 3 walks yesterday as well over the 5 1/3 innings pitched. Edwin Diaz is getting himself into some trouble with the walk. So it's just something that needs to be limited. And I think that we always have this continuous discussion, but the Mets get the job done 7-6. It was a little bit more of a stressful game than we had originally hoped, that the score was 6-1 at one point, but that is the nature of the A's. I mean, they are not, again, I told you all, and we both told you all in the pregame that the A's team, despite their record 5-7 going into yesterday's game, now 5-8, they're a lot better on paper than what their record shows. So should be a very interesting matchup today. And I think that this has to be a series win. I think that the Mets should definitely get it done today and just get out of the way because they face their old friend Luis Severino tomorrow in tomorrow's game. So that should be a fun matchup. But yeah, in terms of, I know I kind of assessed the game in its entirety in addition to the post game that we did last night very late. So I appreciate all of you who stayed up to catch that stream. You know, I'm not overly worried about Diaz, but I think that to completely turn the blind eye to some of the struggles that he's had so far in the early goings of the season would just be kind of reckless. You know what I mean? I think that we have to talk about it and have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of obvious. Like I did watch the game highlights, and if you don't have his fastball, he's in trouble because he really doesn't set up his slider because they're not looking for the fastball if you can't throw it for a strike. They'll be sitting on that slider, and that's Diaz at this point. Nobody's expecting 2022 Diaz, but the difference then, since we had Diaz, the difference this year is that Stanton can close. Minter can close in a crunch. Reed Garrett can close. Like we have three. Jose Buto can close. Like we have 3 or 4 guys that can step in if Diaz just can't find it over a stretch of games. You have reinforcements that can replace him at least for the short term if you need a closer and to get Diaz right again. As like they took him out of the closer spot last year, but there was nobody to really do it. And they got themselves into trouble because of that. And I don't think that would be so much of a problem if Diaz is struggling. You just fill the role with somebody else, and there is guys that can take that mantle because some of these guys were actually closers at one point, which is a good sign.
Right. 100%. And that's something that I talked about, many of times with this bullpen, that the fact that Carlos Mendoza has those options with guys that have pitched in big situations late in the ball game, maybe for the Mets at one point, or maybe just for their old teams, right, is such a great option or options to have, right? Especially if Edwin Diaz doesn't look like himself. Maybe at one point, if Edwin Diaz needs to get right, maybe they put him in an eighth inning and somebody else gets the closing duties that day. Because at this point, given the Edwin Diaz contract, and we can talk about this more in the offseason, I think he's going to opt in. I don't think he's going anywhere. But, you know, after next season, you're talking about potentially having to look elsewhere for a closer, right? And who knows what happens at that point. So, you know, I don't know. The best my interest is the Mets winning ball games. And so whoever gives them the best opportunity to do that, I think should be in those key situations. So I wouldn't be opposed to mixing and matching things up in the bullpen if Carlos Mendoza has to get to that point. Again, a little bit of a premature discussion. I do understand that, as it's only, 13 games into the season. The Mets are 9-4, but that's something to just definitely look out for. But moving ahead to this game here. And by the way, please do smash those thumbs up buttons on both of our channels and subscribe to both of our channels. This is being streamed as per usual to both of our channels. So make sure to go ahead and do that. We definitely appreciate it. Let's fast forward to this game right here that we have to watch. It's 4:05 p.m., a little bit of a friendlier East Coast start time out there on the West Coast. Not a 10:05 p.m. start time on Friday. That was absolutely wild, but we're here for it sometimes. The lineup. Let's start with the lineup, and then we'll circle back around to the pitching matchup between David Peterson and JT Ginn. Take me through the lineup. Obviously, Mendoza is going with the hot hand with the DH, unless there's something that we don't know about with Jesse Winker, and he's, ailing a little bit with an injury that we don't know about. It seems like Marte has been up to the task when he started at DH. He smoked the baseball yesterday as well over the center fielder's head. And, it's good to see. It's good to see him having success, especially if he's going to be a staple in this lineup in the top 5, especially while Vientos is struggling to find his footing, right? But I'm not saying that the Mets should be making lineup decisions based off of one game of Luis Angel Acuna having a multi-hit game. It's just a little bit unusual, and I was kind of surprised by the decision to start Brett Baty today. I don't know. What do you make of this lineup? Terens, awesome to see him as well, getting the catching duties yesterday, but Sanger's back in the lineup, so Terens is not taking back-to-back days. They're taking it easy with him, as Alvarez and McNeil both were in a rehab assignment game for the St. Lucie Mets yesterday on Friday night at the same time, so they are well on their way to being back. Do you think that today is matchups based, or today is a little bit more of McNeil's coming back, and so therefore we need to see both of these guys as much as possible before McNeil gets back and we have to make a decision?
I think it's one with the matchup, and two, I think the fact that they're in a minor league ballpark, I think they're trying to get Beatty right, and where else better to do it? His saving grace is a minor league ballpark. Let's be quite honest about that. So maybe we hit lightning in a bottle here. I don't believe that, but this is the whole problem that I have with the platoon situation, regardless of the position. I don't like platoons because if you look at Acuna, what he did yesterday, you would think you would want to start him and not sit him on the bench. And what he's going to get up in the 7th inning while he's been sitting the whole game. Like, I don't like the Beatty decision. The logical thinking of Mendoza is probably minor league ballpark. Let's get Brett Beatty going. McNeil's coming back. Somebody's got to step up. But again, Acuna got 2 hits yesterday. You got to play the kid. Like, what does that tell you? The same reason why I didn't want to play Acuna over Brett Beatty to start the season, because he outperformed Acuna in spring training, right? You got to prove it. You got to earn it to get the starting job and make the roster. The same reason here. Acuna deserves to start today. Brett Beatty does not. But again, they don't see it like that. They don't, their numbers, their analytics, their reasoning has nothing to do with because they're hot. But again, why is Marte playing today? Because he's hitting over Winker. I mean, we don't know the full story with Winker. Is he, has an ailing injury? We don't know about that, and they haven't said nothing. But let's say if Winker's healthy, why is Marte in the lineup? Doesn't make sense. Well, he's been hitting when he starts. There you go. That's the only thing I can think of. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Beatty move, but maybe the McNeil decision is coming very, very soon. As we all know, he's rehabbing in Port St. Lucie. I would just assume they're trying to get the best judgment they can on both of these guys. And I think it's going to be a flip flop every single day. I think Beatty's starting today, Acuna's starting tomorrow. When we go to Minnesota, Beatty's going to start the first game. I think it's going to go back and forth, regardless of what they do, just to see who has the most production. And then they'll make the decision, even though I think this decision is still lying with Beatty. And that's probably not anybody's favorite, but we will see. The lineup is fine overall. I do like Marte in the 5th spot. And, I don't know. Would you start moving Vientos down a little bit further? I know there's not really anywhere to put him, but Vientos doesn't look good, and I'm hoping it's only 13 games, so I'm not going crazy. You always talk about the sophomore slump, but you know, see, we would do this. We would move Vientos to the 2 hole, put Alonso 4th, Soto 3, and then Nimmo 5th, and then so on and so forth. But they're not going to do that. See, I don't think they're going to move Alonso at this point. He's red hot, so you don't want to mess with that production right now. But I don't know. Vientos is in a rough spot. I mean, he was 4th, he was 5th, now he's 6th. I mean, there's really nowhere else to put him because 7, 8, and 9 is almost a complete disaster.
There's really nowhere else to put him. I think the difference between batting Vientos 6th and 7th is very negligible, and pitchers would still be pitching the same way to him. I think that he has to make the adjustment because the book is out on him. Like you mentioned last season, right? Like they have identified his weakness, and his weakness is the same weakness that Pete Alonso had last season before he made that approach change.
Right.
It's that down and out breaking ball that he just simply is fishing on. And that is something that he is going to have to get adjusted to. And if he doesn't, he's in for a rough season. So I hope that he is able to make that in-season adjustment. And honestly, Pete Alonso being the veteran, if you see that a guy in his second season struggling with the same thing that literally you just struggled with last season, I think that there needs to be some internal conversations there. And I think that Vientos could definitely learn a thing or two, maybe with rewatching some of the tape on Pete Alonso last season. So that's what I think about that. But in terms of a lineup change, the only way, and the same thing we were having discussions, I think Brendan Nimmo is slowly starting to come around and putting together better at bats, although, the strikeout is still a very big problem for Brandon Nimmo. I think that is very evident. But the only way to move those guys is up. Like that's the only way to move those guys in the lineup. I don't see any scenario where you move them down. And that's just because, again, are you really going to move any of these guys right here? I think the only scenarios, if Terrence is in the lineup, then you can move him into the 6th spot and then afford to move one of the guys down. But I just don't see it happening, right? I don't see it happening. And then, you're talking about guys that belong in the 8 and 9 spot with Siri and Sanger. So it's hard. I don't think any lineup adjustment's going to fix that. But, what I will say is that going back to the Brett Beatty discussion is that so I have 2 things with this. One, do you think that trying to, as bad as Brett Beatty has been, and especially given the game that Acuna had yesterday, the fact that Brett Beatty is playing today, is this their last-ditch effort to give him as many opportunities because maybe they're thinking about sending him down instead of Acuna? Do you think that could be plausible?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think McNeil, I don't think did they say he's going to be back at the end of April? Was that something that they were talking about? Or is it
Was
sooner?
that?
McNeil.
I don't know. I mean, they started the rehab assignment yesterday, so I'm not sure how badly they're going to rush them, to be
Because
honest. I have no
I
idea.
would think I'm not sure if I'm thinking outside the box or anything like that, but I think if McNeil would be coming up, I think he would be up before Alvarez. If McNeil comes up, you would think it would be that homestand against the Cardinals, which is like what, 5 days away, 6 days away, about a week.
I think that's what they said. I think that was the early report, is that potentially the Cardinals series is when you could see him back.
Yeah, they usually don't bring guys from the IL back from injury on the road. It's very
On the
rare,
road, yeah.
especially from Florida to California. Like that, they ain't gonna do it, or even Minnesota for that matter. So
Yeah.
I would think they would start him on the homestand. But yeah, I mean, it's plausible. I mean, there's so many different explanations to why they're doing it like this. Again, there is no reason why Acuna shouldn't play today, and yet Beatty's playing. And again, what if Beatty gets 2 hits today, right? Now you're in the gym. Like, who are you gonna play? And I guarantee it'll be Acuna tomorrow. Like, maybe not, because it will be very interesting if Beatty let's say even if he gets a hit, looks better at the plate. Let's say he gets one hit but looks better at the plate. Would you be shocked if Beatty's in the lineup tomorrow? Because I still think they favor Beatty a little bit. I don't know. It's just that feeling. I think you agree with that. Like,
I do agree with that. I do agree with that.
that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I was like,
Unfortunately.
that's why I want to see Beatty. Beatty, give me 2 hits today. Because I'll be very interested to see what they do tomorrow.
Well, I think with us talking about this so much, I think I even tweeted this out earlier today. Just the way that baseball works, he's going to have a multi-hit game today,
Sure,
and you
of course.
can. I'm not going to be a part of the post game today. I can't make it. I have commitments, on this lovely Saturday. But if he does, then this is me calling my shot right here. Brett Beatty multi-hit game in this ball game. So, but that's just the way that baseball works. But as it, going off of that, the favoring of one guy over the other guy is something that really made me think, and I have to credit a mutual follower over on X, Lito the Mets guy, Lito Grimes, I believe is his at. You know, Lito, if you're watching this, shout out to you. Puts out some great stuff on his account as well. I'm always in tune with what they're posting on their account. But how much I'm not sure if you'll agree with this or not, but it made me think a little bit, and that's what I like. I like differing perspective. How much do you think that and the lineup is Carlos Mendoza's, right? We know that. But how much, if at all, do you think David Stearns is controlling this second base platoon, who plays versus who doesn't, and what the rotation and platoon should be? I don't think that David Stearns has any say anywhere else in the lineup. I think it's all Carlos Mendoza. But given the perplexity and just the weight and magnitude of the second base trying to figure it out, because this is the future of the Mets you're talking about, right? This is the potential future of the Mets, even in an era after Jeff McNeil. How much of that do you think is David Stearns, if at all?
I would like to think that Mendoza has full control over this lineup. And personally, I would think he does. But the way the collaboration works with these rosters now and, who to play, not to play, it's all collaboration now. It's never just one person. So would I be shocked if David Stearns has a say with this Beatty Acuna thing? And I do believe that, again, I still believe there's something going on with Acuna and the organization where they don't like certain things about him. That could be where Stearns steps in and be, listen, this guy's not working hard enough. This guy's a little bit lazy, whatever it might be. I think David Stearns might have a little bit of a say. And Mendoza probably, it is his boss. What is he going to say? No. He could. I don't think Mendoza is shy to say no. Say, no, I want to play this guy. Like, I don't think Mendoza would listen to Stearns if he thinks it's going to hurt the team just because Stearns wants to see Beatty play and see giving him his last chances before McNeil comes back. I think Mendoza cares about winning more than what David Stearns thinks about a player. Like, David Stearns is supposed to be the evaluator. Mendoza is supposed to win games. Like, that's their job. So I would be shocked if Beatty's in the lineup because Stearns says, ring that phone call in Sacramento and go, hey, listen, Beatty's in the lineup today. I would think Mendoza would fight that and say, well, Acuna got 2 hits yesterday. The kid looks like he might be on to something here. Like, why sit him? So, yeah, can that be very plausible? Could that be – would I be shocked? No. I just hope Mendoza has the say-so in this lineup. And if that's the case, then maybe it's just strategy when it comes to David Stearns, Mendoza, and the collaborative effort of the front office and managers and coaches that they're going to platoon these guys as much as possible, give them almost the same amount of at-bats, and when McNeil's ready, whoever has more production or looks better and might benefit the team or help the team more to win might be the one to stay on this roster. That's the only thing I can think of at this point. Because, again, now you could say Acuna has a little bit of the lead, right? He's better defensively. He's got the speed. He's got a couple of more hits than Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty still hasn't looked anywhere near the hitter he was in spring training. So what do you do? And I would hope they would keep the guy on the roster that is doing the best. At least I hope so.
Yeah. I'm still also struggling to figure out, like, do I believe that David Stearns has a say in that or not? I don't even know if I don't know. I'm just going to say that. There's not many topics about the Mets that I can't say that I don't know.
His
But
nose and everything now.
what was that?
like he seems like a guy that would like to get his nose into everything now. He seems like
Well,
I'm not saying
again,
a control freak, but he seems like the guy that, like he wants his I guess his opinion known all over the place.
well,
Like
as he should. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
sure,
He
sure.
is the one that's bringing
But
these
he's
players on board and making the decisions of these two guys that are young and trying to win a second base job. I mean, that is kind of fair from his perspective.
yeah. I mean, I don't think he's calling up mid game and saying, "Hey, put this guy in," like Cashman to Boone, in Yankee Stadium. But
Yeah.
I do feel like Mendoza has the same most things, but I think the Beatty and Acuna situation is a unique situation. It was a situation that wasn't a story until McNeil got hurt. We all believed Beatty was going to make the team regardless of McNeil getting hurt or not. So it took a weird turn when McNeil got hurt, and now second base was open. So maybe Stearns has more to say with that than Mendoza does. But again, Brett Beatty's getting the opportunity. At some point, you either, show up or you're going to be back in the minors again, and you're never going to come back up again unless there's major injuries. So,
Yeah,
two
and you know
different things.
what? That's something that also is very interesting to me, and I'm gonna look this up actually. JT Gin Savant, because the Mets, and forgive me for speaking while I am trying to look at this, but the Mets came out and said, and they were talking about on the broadcast, a week ago, maybe a little bit over that, about there is some merit to the Mets making lineup decisions based off of the pitch style and the pitches that the opposing pitcher on any given day is throwing, right? And lining that up as best as possible to the swing path of the players that they're making the decision on to put in the lineup versus sit. And so it was very interesting. And also, got to give credit to Lito, the Mets guys, well over on X, because they pointed this out to me. But I just reconfirmed it here on the Savant page. Ginn is a heavy sinker baller. He throws it for 50% of the time. So as a righty, he's throwing that and it's diving down and in to right-handed bats, right? But the fact of the matter is that if it's going down, I don't know if that is. I think that only feeds into the ground ball problem that Brett Beatty might already have. So that if that's why I don't believe that it's based off of that pitcher. I really do think that regardless, they
Yeah,
had this Brett Beatty start penciled in, and it doesn't matter who's on the mound because the Athletics were undecided. By the way, they were undecided up until I don't know, maybe earlier today, something like that. Maybe there's speculation yesterday, but they had this penciled in as a Brett Beatty start because you have a sinker baller on the mound right now, and if you have a guy that is 60% ground ball rate, upwards of that, and Brett Beatty, you're not going to start him against a sinker baller. So I don't know. It's just that was interesting to me to start to assess there.
I think they have a set role for these guys, and I don't think it's changing regardless of what happened the day before. And on top of that, Acuna's first at bat, the ball that he hit against to the wall for the double for his first hit, it was ankle high. So wouldn't that be
Yeah.
a perfect situation where JT Ginn, who's a sickle baller, throws pitches low and inside to these righties? That would be perfect for Luisano Acuna because Luisano Acuna seems like he's a low ball hitter as a right-hander, which is kind of unique for the most part for right-handers. That's usually a left-hander's forte is low and inside, where the lefty usually is their little sweet spot. So yeah, you know what? They might have it on a little piece of paper or now iPads where they have Acuna days and Beatty days, and that's it. And maybe Beatty and Acuna know this,
Sure.
and and which is good. They should know this. They shouldn't not know when they're playing. I think that's a stupid way to mess with young kids because ultimately I think this is hurting both of these guys. More Acuna because he still has upside, and Beatty is I don't know, a fringe guy at this point. So I think it's ultimately hurting them, but it's not going to whatever the hell we think is not going to change what they're doing at this point. They're already 13 games in. I'm assuming if Jeff Neal comes back in the Cardinal series at home, which is another around 5-6 days away, they got a week. Both of these guys got a week to prove something. Acuna started it yesterday. Today's Beatty's day, and I would you be shocked if the next 6 games, it's Acuna Beatty, Acuna Beatty, Acuna
I would
Beatty.
not.
Yeah, well, that's the
I
thing,
would not be
and
shocked.
again, this is why I hope Brett Beatty gets like 2 hits today because it's going to be fascinating. We're going to talk about the win, we're going to talk about the win or the loss, or we're going to talk about the game in general. But to see the lineup tomorrow
Yeah.
is going to be just fascinating to me of who's going to be playing tomorrow if Beatty actually hits.
Yeah, and honestly, like, it doesn't matter if the lineup construction wasn't a question mark. We'd still be rooting for Brett Beatty to get a multi-hit game. Like, we
Oh,
don't
sure,
want to see
we
this
want to
kid
win.
fail. I would love for a situation to arise where he just starts knocking the cover off the baseball. And I think that's what all Mets fans really wanted after he had such a strong spring training, and it just hasn't happened. But the one thing that we can't pretend is that this is something new of him getting, an opportunity. We've seen a lot of at bats at this point, a decent sample size in his career, not just this year, but going back over the last couple of seasons. And this is who he has been as a player. So it's up to him to try to disprove that. And he just hasn't done it so far. So, but as we continue to talk about second base and the lack of offensive production, a lot of people don't want to talk about or haven't talked about. Maybe actually some people have, as I seen up in the chat. But the Mets also have a problem with offensive production from the center field position with Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor at this point, also in the same situation of platooning. Yesterday was Jose Siri getting the start. Today, also Jose Siri, whereas Tyrone Taylor got most of the starts in that Marlins series, if I'm not mistaken. So, what do you make of that platoon? And you know, Tyrone Taylor, I think, is probably the more well-rounded hitter. I think that everyone would agree with that. But when you take a look at the actual impact on the bases, this is kind of like a mirror image of the Acuna Beatty situation. Tyrone Taylor's not a slow runner by any stretch of the imagination. He's not,
No.
right? He's a great guy, great defensive guy. Can swipe a bag if you need, but he's just not as electric on the base paths and making things happen as Jose Siri, which is very well documented earlier on in this season. So, what's going on with center field? Are you concerned, or do you even care that we're also not getting center field production offensively?
Yeah, it would be nice. It's killing the second base and center field production is basically almost non-existent. It's not helping his team at all. But I think Mendoza said it about a week ago. He knows Tyrone Taylor. He knows that Tyrone Taylor is not going to complain. He's not going to, worry about playing time. When he gets called upon, he'll play. Mendoza doesn't know Jose Siri. Jose Siri, we all know, is a hothead. We don't know how he's going to react to sitting 4 to 5 days straight, and Tyrone Taylor plays every day. So I think Mendoza is trying to get Jose Siri going. Two, I think Mendoza really don't know Jose Siri enough to say, all right, he can play twice a week and play Tyrone Taylor every day, even though that might be the better option. He knows Tyrone Taylor can sit for 3 days, play on the fourth day, and still provide some type of production, even if it's with the glove, maybe a little bit of his speed, or even with the bat. I think Mendoza trusts Tyrone Taylor to not worry about him playing for a couple of days straight, and that's why Jose Siri's playing. I don't think they know what they got with Jose Siri as a whole. I think they're trying to. I truly believe that they got Jose Siri to be the starting center fielder, but at some point, you got to make a decision. If series is just an absolute zero, Tyrone Taylor has to get the start. The same way when Harrison Bader started to, decline a little bit offensively, Tyrone Taylor took the job. So I think that's going to happen again. I just think Tyrone Taylor is a professional. He's a team player. He's a team first guy. Whatever his manager says, he'll do. And I think he's going to wait for his time. And eventually it probably will happen if Siri continues like this. And Tyrone Taylor is just going to get the job at some point. But because Mendoza has a new player in Jose Siri, he's not going to judge it on the 7, 8 games that Jose Siri has started yet. Because I don't think they don't know because Jose Siri was a starter in Tampa Bay. So sitting him on the bench, could that hurt us long term this year? Right? Is he going to be just he's already terrible, but is he going to be even worse? Is he going to lose focus? The stuff that they've been talking about with Acuna on the bench when he's not starting. Is Jose Siri going to be a guy that, loafs around, not being ready when called upon? Is that what they're worried about? Because he's a hothead. We don't know if his head's always in the game. At least if he's starting, they know his head is in the ball game. Not saying that the production is there, but they don't worry about Tyron Taylor with that. I think they worry, or at least they're trying to find out if Jose Siri, or I guess getting that personality of Jose Siri, if he can just sit on the bench and get called upon whatever whenever Mendoza asks, or is it better for Tyron Taylor to come off the bench because we've been there, done that before, and Mendoza trusts Tyron Taylor to be on the bench without any fuss.
Clearly, there's a lot of platoon, especially in these two positions that Mendoza is having to make a very hard decision on an everyday basis, and hopefully the decision gets easier with the, addition of Jeff McNeil back when that time comes, and hopefully one of the center fielders continues to, or at least starts producing in a way that they can make themselves the favorite on an everyday basis, but I just don't think that's gonna happen, and, I'm not mad at an on and off situation at center field as long as the Mets are able to get more stable production at second base when Jeff McNeil comes back, so, we'll see, a lot of decisions that need to be made, but kind of moving forward into the actual pitching matchup of today. Oh, by the way, I mean, we can't skip over Pete Alonso and what he's doing so far this season. Like
Crazy.
3 for 3 again yesterday. OPS still over 1,000, well over 1,000. I mean, he's batting well over 300 as well in the season. He is just locked in, Rob. Another home run under his belt. The RBIs is inching closer in 13 games to like 20 RBIs. He's just under that. So it's crazy production that we're getting out of Pete Alonso, and I think that you are correct. Those top 3 are locked into those spots, and the guys are either gonna come around behind them or they aren't, and that's just a simple way that Mendoza is gonna keep constructing the top half of this lineup at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. He's putting up MVP caliber numbers through 13 games. And look, I would love for him to do this the whole year. I mean, if he does this, I mean, you can count him probably off the Mets, to be quite honest with you. I think there's somebody out there that's going to ultimately pay him big time money. But I mean, my God, I mean, what he's doing. But again, this is 2022, 2019 Pete Alonso. He is not over swinging. He is just seeing the ball and hitting the ball. That ball that he hit as a laser beam to left field last night for the home run, I mean, that went out in a blink of an eye. Like, that is the type of barrel to ball that we've missed the last 2 seasons with Pete Alonso. This is 2022 Pete Alonso at its best. Like, this, everything that's good about Pete Alonso, he has bottled up into the 2025 season. And it's beautiful to watch. And if he continues this, I mean, the Mets are winning. It's basically Alonso against whoever the Mets are playing. Like, that's how it's been basically almost the entire season so far. And that's great for Alonso, obviously contract wise, if he continues this, but it's also benefiting the Mets because they're winning. And if Pete Alonso continues to be a big part of that, why the hell not, right? I'm excited because this is something that we needed to see from Pete Alonso that he's lacked the last 2 seasons, is being the man. He's the man over Soto, Lindor, Nimmo, name your guy. He is the man right now. And he's not shows no signs of stopping. And good for him. Good for him because he deserves it. Like, let's be completely honest. I gave Pete Alonso hell last year. Everybody knows that. But he deserves 110% credit for what he's doing right now. You know why? Because it wasn't the coaches that telling him, Eric Chavez or anybody else. He decided to change his batting philosophy, his approach at the plate. He did it. That's why I appreciate a player like that, because you can listen to the coaches all you want, but it's up to the player to actually change your approach. If it's not working, something that your coaches are telling you, go back to what made you great. And that's exactly what Pete Alonso is doing. What made you great in 2022? What made you awesome in your rookie season in 2019 is what he's doing now. I hope he continues to do it because all it's going to do is make the Mets better, and it's going to get Pete Alonso very much paid.
And it's going to create a hell of an off-season storyline yet again surrounding Pete Alonso and what the decision is going to come down to. So, yeah, you got to give Pete Alonso his flowers. The thing that makes him so great is being an all-fields hitter. That's what made him great before in those great seasons that you just mentioned, and he's doing it again. And he's just simply dangerous. I mean, there is not many pitches that opposing pitcher, they have to make the perfect pitch against him. And if you are a hitter that is clicking all cylinders and you are making a pitcher worry about throwing the perfect pitch just to get you out because they have to worry about Juan Soto right before you, and sometimes maybe even choosing to face you over Juan Soto, which he's already made a couple of pitchers pay for by doing so this season, you've got them right where you want them. And Pete Alonso right now has pretty much every single pitcher right where he wants them. And so very happy with the output. You're talking about the best first baseman in baseball right now and
Absolutely.
in every facet of the game. I mean, until he drops off, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, I don't know, but right now Pete Alonso is the best first baseman in the game. 100%.
Yeah, couldn't agree
Let's
more.
fast forward to the pitching matchup real quick because David Peterson is making his first start before, I guess, after the nausea incident. We were kind of worried about, what was going down in that Blue Jays series, I believe, where he went 4 and 2/3 innings pitched, gave up 1 earned run, but just didn't look quite like himself. And it ended up being a nausea situation, which was good because there's nothing structurally wrong with his body, right? Which was great because it looked like he kind of like did something to his back, his lower back. And I'm like, oh, that is not good news whatsoever. But it was just nausea. So, we'll see how he is able to rebound in this start. But what are you looking out of David Peterson? And oh, by the way, two former Mets back to back, JT Ginn today and Luis Severino tomorrow. JT Ginn was a part of that, was it Chris Bassett trade
Yep.
back in 2022 that brought Bassett to Queens. And we know that it served them pretty well in that season. Fortunately, they didn't get to where they wanted to get to in that 101 win season. But what are you looking out for in this pitching matchup? Maybe from the Mets lineup against Jin or just David Peterson and how he's able to rebound from his last start?
Well, when it comes to David Peterson, if he's healthy, and we all believe that he is, I think this is the perfect lineup for him. They're aggressive. They swing at a lot. They're very aggressive at the plate. I think that can work in David Peterson's favor, especially with his off speed pitches, breaking ball pitches. I think that he can make them fish out of the zone. And I think when Griffin Cannon was in the zone, he got lit up. When he was out of the zone, they couldn't touch him. I mean, there was pitches that I couldn't believe they swung at, but they did. And kudos to Griffin Cannon. But when you were around the plate, that's when they caused a little bit of damage. And that went for Griffin Cannon. And even when Reed Garrett came in, even though they both been fine, they were fine. Yeah, they were pretty good yesterday. That's when they got into trouble. With David Peterson, I think obviously he watched the game. He sees, I guarantee you, the strategy and the plan of attack against this A's lineup is to work around the plate. Obviously, you want to try to get ahead for sure, but as they're being aggressive, you can't let that fastball, you throw it right down the middle to try to get ahead in the count. And these guys are swinging for the fences, and that's where you can get into trouble. I think you're gonna see in the first inning or two, he's gonna work around the plate, see if they go fishing. He might walk a few guys, but to get to see if these guys are swinging at everything, try to work around the zone and then, locate your fastball when you need to. But I think this is a perfect lineup for David Peterson. He knows how to pitch. We all know that. We know how good he can be when his stuff is on. I truly think that David Peterson is going to have a hell of a start today. Now, do the Mets win? That's up to the offense, right? Again, Alonso will probably go 3 for 4 once again, and somebody else, it would be nice to step up. But at the end of the day, David Peterson, perfect lineup for him. I think he can easily go 6 innings, and I think that would be helpful for a bullpen that once again was used a decent amount yesterday. With JT Ginn, I mean, former top prospect. I don't really know what to think. I mean, again, the Mets. I think this is the first time seeing him, so what. I don't know. It's hard because you never see these guys, and the Mets have been notorious of not hitting well, regardless of who's in the lineup against pitchers they never seen before. But that has been often lately. So I think they got to jump on early pitches. I think he's going to probably try to get ahead in the zone and get ahead in the account, and that's when the Mets I think have to jump on those type of pitches. Right? You can't let this kid get confidence on the mound. You got to beat him up early. And I think if you do that, I think it should be a good victory for us.
Yeah, and I think that that point that you made with David Peterson is so crucial. If he can be successful in terms of nibbling around the zone, but still making competitive enough pitches to where they just can't lay off of it because it could be a strike, but it also could not be. It's kind of 50-50. That is going to produce a lot of success for him because this A's lineup is honestly kind of a lineup that I enjoy watching because they are so ultra aggressive early in the count, and it does them a lot of good because they make very hard contact, as you saw yesterday. But sometimes the ball just didn't land in their favor, and that's the nature of baseball. But they are a very aggressive lineup. They are not afraid to attack the fastballs if they get one early in the count. And even some of the breaking balls, the sliders that we saw from Griffin Canning, that he was able to induce some swing and miss, they will expand the zone. So if David Peterson can go ahead and use that to his advantage, that would be absolutely tremendous. So um, yeah, that's really all I have. Anything else? Final thoughts here from today and the action that we're going to see here in just about 40 minutes?
Yeah, if we got a 5-6, 5-run lead, I think we would be nice to keep it without having to sweat it out in the ninth inning. That would be nice. But again, the Mets are better than this team. We saw it yesterday, right? It almost got away from us because our closer couldn't throw a strike. But get this win, get another series win, and we'll be talking about a sweep tomorrow. This should be a win with David Peterson on the mound, with this lineup, with an aggressive A's lineup that doesn't mind swinging at every pitch. Get it done today. Hopefully, I'm talking about a win on the post game, and I think we will. So let's go Mets. Span Mets W's.
And the W's for me in my absence on the post game. I definitely appreciate everyone that tuned into this pregame. Again, Rob has got you all covered with the post game stream right after the game. So make sure to turn on notifications for both of our channels. I wish I could make the post game, but we'll be right back live for the pregame and post game tomorrow. I will be available for that. And hopefully at that point, we're trying to assess if it's going to be a sweep because I need the series win to be out of the way with a victory today in game 2 against the A's. Live from Sacramento, California. Not us, but the Mets will be here in just about 35 minutes or so. Let's go, Mets. As always, hopefully the lineup comes around. The offense, a little bit more consistency going. Some of the at-bats are getting a little bit better, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully you're talking about a win, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for myself. Let's go, Mets. Peace out. Take it
Let's
easy.
go Mets.